wonderful Kipsters. Happy Tuesday and welcome back to another day of writing. Now for today, you're going to need your stories that we started on yesterday. If you watched that video, if you didn't, that's okay. You're just going to need paper and pencil so you can write more stories today. Alright, so friends, yesterday actually, we talked about our 5-finger planning, and you watched me plan out my story, you watched me touch each page, and then I completed page number 1, and I worked to add details to it. Now today, we're going to be learning something a little bit new, but we're going to be pulling from information that we already learned, so this is pretty cool. Now, if you remember, put those thinking caps on, way back at the beginning of kindergarten, we learned about our 5 senses. So I'm going to go over those 5 senses, and you might be wondering, why are we talking about 5 senses in writing? I'll tell you why. So remember, our 5 senses are, and I have my hand here, are see with your eyes, hear with your ears, touch with your hands, smell with your nose, and taste with your mouth, of course. So our chart here says adding details with our 5 senses. So Kipsters, we can use our 5 senses to help us add more details to our story and to make it even better. I'm going to show you what I mean. So alright Kipsters, so let's take a look up here, because right here I have some examples of a different story in different sentences, but I want to show you Kipsters how this writer, they wrote regular sentences, but then they thought about their 5 senses and how they could add more to it using the sense that they're talking about. So let's take a look so you can see what I mean. So, for example, the first one says sight. So let's see how this person, this writer, decided to change their senses to talk about what they could see, to make it, to have more detail so their reader could really see what was happening in their brain. So, they wrote the sentence, the socks were on the floor. That's a pretty good sentence, but look at how they use their sense of sight to add more. Here they said the muddy socks were on the floor. So now the reader knows that not only were the socks on the floor, they know that they were muddy. So now they can see, oh, those socks have dirt on them and mud on them. So let's try the next one. The next one is for our sight. I use a sense of sound, what we can hear. So they wrote, the plane flew over. Good sentence, but let's see how they added in their sense of hearing. For this one, they said, the buzzing plane went over. So now the reader can imagine a zzz sound as they read. It's like a moving in their brain. Next one, touch, sense of touch. In the first sentence they wrote, the mud felt gross. Pretty good, but as a good writer, they can add more so that reader can really imagine it. So let's see what they wrote when they added in more details using touch. Instead of just saying the mud felt gross, they said the mud felt sticky and cold. So now the reader can imagine that sticky, sticky mud. Alright, next one, taste. First they wrote, the pizza was yucky. But look how they added more details. They described it. The pizza tasted like cardboard. So now the reader knows exactly what made it yucky. Alright, last one, smell. It says, her perfume smelled good. The reader has an understanding, but what does it smell like? You want to describe it and give more details. So the second time they wrote, her perfume smelled like flowers. Alright, Kipster, so now I'm going to use what I know about how I can use my 5 senses to make my sentences even better by adding more details to help me with my story now. Alright, my Kipsters, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to use my 5 senses to add more details to my story. Now, if you remember, my story, my Small Moment story that I started yesterday is all about how me and my little sister, Dominique, we went outside to have a snowball fight. So, Kipsters, I want to think about the story that I started writing about the snowball fight and being outside with the snow and having fun with my sister. And I'm going to think about the things that I could see, hear, touch, smell, and taste. So, starting with see. What do I see when I go outside? Now, I could just say snow, but I really want to add details. When I went outside for the snowball fight, I could see that the snow was sparkling white. So I'm going to add that to my see column. So sparkle, sparkling, and white. So now I can add those words into my story, but not yet. Then I'm going to think about, what are some things that I can hear? Well, I can hear my sister laughing. I'm going to say I could hear laughing. I could hear, cars going by on the street. So that was some things that I could hear. Okay, now let's go on to touch. I can describe maybe what the snow felt like. So instead of me just saying in my sentence like, I was outside in the snow, I could say I was outside in the snow and it felt so cold. You see, just like that, I added more to my sentence, and now the story's a little bit more interesting. My reader can kind of imagine what the snow felt like, because I'm telling them, oh, it was cold. So let me write that. So for touch, it felt super, super duper cold, like a freezer. Okay, now smell, that was a little tricky because I didn't really smell anything. And sometimes you can't add all of your sentences, but that's okay. So I'm going to skip smell because in this case, I didn't smell much. Now taste, let me think. We were outside for the snowball fight. We didn't taste anything. But in my story, when we went inside, we did go inside for a cup of hot cocoa. So I could tell about how it tasted kind of like chocolate. And I could put we put marshmallows in the hot cocoa, so I could even put that the marshmallows were chewy. All right, hipsters, so I have so many words that I can add to my story now. And I want you guys to watch me as I do this. I'm going to hang this up on the wall behind me so I can kind of use it to help me as I write. All right, hipsters, so now it's time for me to use one of my 5 sentences. You don't have to do all of them. You could pick 1 or 2, and that way you can think, okay, what is something I could see, touch, taste, smell, or any of the other senses in my story so that I can add more details to make my writing even stronger, okay? So I already wrote out the beginning, which I'm going to read it again to remind me what I already wrote. I wrote that one day, me and my little sister went outside for a snowball fight. We both ran behind a tree. Now, if you guys remember from my other video from yesterday, I said that in the middle, and this shows again why planning is so important because now I already know what I want to write. So I remember that in the middle, I rolled up a ball of snow and I threw it at my sister. She threw one back and we both went off running. Now, I could just say, I threw a ball of snow and my sister, she threw one back. But remember, friends, we're trying to get first grade ready. And first graders, they think about ways they can add better details to make their story even stronger. So let me think about it. I could use one of my senses. Let me see. I'm going to use touch and think about how the snow felt when I picked it up. So instead of just saying, I picked up the snow, I'm going to say I picked up the cold, wet snow and made a snowball. So I'm going to write that now. All right, kids, so I went ahead and I wrote the sentences for the middle of my story off camera to show how I added more details. If you look, I have way more words on the page because I used one of my 5 sentences. I thought about, okay, touch. What did it feel like? I can add that into my story. So listen to what I wrote now, and listen for those words that I use to describe my 5 sentences, or one of my 5 sentences. Okay, here we go. It says, I rolled a ball of cold, wet snow and threw it. So right there, friends, my reader could imagine the snow. It's like they were there. They could almost feel it. That's how I feel when I read a book and the author describes it really well. I feel like I'm really there. And that's what you want to do as a writer. I could have just said, I rolled a ball of snow, threw it. But instead, I said, I rolled a ball of cold, wet snow. Then I said, she threw one back, and we ran through the slushy snow. So again, I'm describing what it felt like. Touch again. We ran through the slushy snow. Then I'm going to add my picture to match. But before I do that, I want to get my words on the next page and think about which one of my 5 sentences I could use here. Okay? Now remember, at the end, because I already planned it out, I know that at the end, we ran back into the house to get warm and we got some cocoa. Now, instead of me just saying we got some cocoa, I could describe the cocoa. We got some hot, chocolatey cocoa, and we put fluffy marshmallows inside. So now my reader, they almost feel like, oh, they're there. They can imagine what the cocoa was like. So now I'll go ahead and add that I chose to use touch for that one with our chocolatey cocoa and chewy marshmallows. And I'll add that in and then we'll come back. All right, Kipster, so let's see how I added more details to the end of my story. Now, I told you guys I wanted to use my sense of taste to add more details because we got some cocoa. So I want you to listen to how I added more details. Now, I wanted to just say, first what I was thinking was we went inside to get warm and we had some cocoa. That would be good to write. But remember, like I keep reminding you, we're trying to make our writing even better. So we want to add more details. So listen to what I wrote instead when I used my sense of taste for this page. So I wrote, we got cold and went inside to get warm. Our dad made us a cup of yummy, so I added that in too to show it was delicious, yummy chocolate cocoa with chewy marshmallows. I had to add it to the bottom. So now that I've written my words, I'm going to go back to my middle and my end and add pictures that match. Now, Kipsters, it's your turn to write. Now, you don't have to draw a hand or anything like that, but what I want you to do is to pick one of the 5 senses. So pick one, just one, and talk with your family about how you can add it to your story. All right, Kipsters, so when this video ends, you guys can go ahead and add one of the senses to your story to make the details even better. I'm really looking forward to seeing how you added your 5 senses to your story just like I did so you can make it even better. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow, Kipsters. Keep up the good work.